Hey everyone, it's Sean Smith from Black Push. Throughout the last week, we've seen yet another tragedy happening in Chicago and one in Philly on the holiday where we're supposed to be celebrating the freedom of America and what America stands for. Over the last month, I've had the opportunity to tour places like Uvalde and tour places like Buffalo, and I plan to go to Chicago as well. I am at a place and at a space to where I'm tired of talking about what we need to do, and I'm tired of talking about the things that we have to galvanize around. And it's time for us to get to work. It's time for us to get to action. It's a shame when you meet with a family in Uvalde who tells you a story about their child who they couldn't even bury the child, but they can only bury the shoes or a piece of clothing from the child because they were shot with an assault rifle, and that bullet got into their body and exploded, and there was not even a trace of a body to even bury. It's hard hearing the stories of families who were in Buffalo going to work, just doing their job, serving their community, and interacting with someone who they didn't know 2 days later would come back into their store and not only try to cause harm to them, but try to cause harm to people who look like them just because of the color of their skin. In America, we've talked about gun violence. We continue to talk about gun violence every single day, but we still have so much more work to be done in this issue. But there's so much going on in America where a friend of mine asked me the other day that do I believe that there's a civil war in America, and at first I had to take a pause because my first reaction was to say no. But the reality is that there is a civil war going on in America. It's just not going on in the streets, and partially it is going on in the streets, right? But there's a civil war in America in the policies that are being passed right now in Congress and the policies that are taking effect. When you think about our community and the black community and the impact and the different things that are going on in our community right now, even we see a menthol ban that's getting ready to look like it's being pushed by the current administration through the FDA that would disproportionately impact the African American community. If we're going to ban cigarettes, let's be honest. If we're going to ban cigarettes, we ban cigarettes. But let's not just target one particular brand of cigarettes or one particular variation of cigarettes. That we know the impact, again, will be on the African American community. This past weekend, like many of you, I had the opportunity to visit my family after I left a meeting in D.C. And weirdest thing about my family is that even though sometimes we don't always communicate with each other, we don't always talk to each other, my family has a way of really humbling me and really causing me to evaluate myself. And for the preaching part of me, or the speaking or preacher part of me, they teach me a lot of theology. I looked at my family this weekend, and one of the things that we had a great privilege of doing is spending time with my two of my oldest aunts. One is in her 90s and one is in her late 80s. And the following day, I had an opportunity to spend time with my little cousins and my nieces and nephews and my whole family from that perspective, from the younger generation. And it was 2 days of me being able to see people who were born in the 30s and the 40s, all the way down to people who were born recently in the 2000s, and to be able to look at the dynamic of my family. And my family taught me one thing this weekend, if they didn't teach me anything else, was that as diverse as we are, as big as the generation, or the gap in the generations are, we still have so much work to do. We have so much work to do to make sure that the next generation doesn't have to worry about what my aunties in the 30s and the 40s had to deal with when it came to segregation and when it came to their voting rights. As we've seen even recently, last week the Supreme Court decided to take on another case that will impact the way we're able to vote in different states throughout the country. We've seen in the last couple of weeks the Supreme Court send Roe v. Wade back to states, knowing that most states will probably take an opportunity to ban abortions. Where even as a preacher, I don't support abortions, but I stand with the fundamental right that a woman knows what's best to do with what best to do with her body. And she doesn't need my input, but she needs the input of the doctor in which she consults with, and whoever the other person is, who may be the father. That's the only person who she needs to be responsible to, or even have a conversation in reference to this too. But we know that the Supreme Court, it should not be in the Supreme Court's purview or any man's purview on what a woman should be able to do with her body. We know that if we look at the way the country is going right now, justice is not fair in America. That African Americans are being disproportionately sentenced and sentenced at getting longer sentences than our counterparts and other people who don't look like me. We understand that laws that are being passed in like states like Georgia that allows people to have an open carry permit disproportionately impacts the African American community. This message today, let's make this clear, it's not about black and white. It's not about left or right. It's not about Democrat or Republican. It's about fundamentally, like, who are we as a nation? What are we going to do with the moment in which we're given? What are we going to do with the opportunity that's given to us today? We're being challenged as a nation to really confront where we will be and who we will be in the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years. The question is, what are we going to do? The question is, what legacy we pass on to the next generation? Will it be a legacy that says that your right to vote and your voice to vote doesn't make a difference, that we put our right to carry guns over the right to us having a basic, healthy life, that it's more important for us to have access to guns than for us to have access to health care? That as a nation, that people should be sentenced differently because of the color of their skin or where they're born at or how much money they have in their bank accounts? Shame on us. Today, I'm speaking from my heart to yours. As an organization, Black Push has stood on the front lines of a lot of these issues, from voting rights to social injustice, to making sure ex-offenders are given the right to be rehabilitated back into their society, but also to make sure that we create a society that's welcoming of them. But also, too, to combat and to stand with those families and those people who have been impacted, like myself and my family, by gun violence. We have so much work to do. It's going to take all of us. What I'm asking today is simple. I'm putting out a call to say, can we put our pride to the side? Can we humble ourselves? Can we put aside what party we vote with or what party we align ourselves with, where we come from, what religion we believe in? And can we actually say as a country that we won't pass on the issues that we currently have onto our next generation? And we talk about not passing on debt to our next generation, but what about not passing on a reality where children are not even practicing fire drills anymore or tornado drills anymore in school, but the biggest drill they do is what happens if there's an active shooter in your school? Can we pass on a generation to where a young child doesn't have to cover themselves in the blood of their friend and act like they're dead in order to save their own life? Can we pass on to the next generation where families can go out to enjoy a parade on the 4th of July or Juneteenth without the fear of knowing that if they invite a family member who's visiting from Mexico, that their life is just as precious? Or a father doesn't have to take his 2 children, put them in a garbage can to hide them while he goes and run back to try to save the lives of other people who are being shot? Can we pass on to the next generation a legacy where people are not being disproportionately sentenced, or people are not being targeted because of their race or because of where they come from or because of their religious belief? Can we pass on to the next generation access to simple things like healthcare, the right to vote, the fundamental right to vote? We're better than this. The world believes we're better than this. Even as I travel around the country, people still have the great dream of coming to America because they still believe that America is the greatest place in the nation or in the world, and one of the greatest places to come and live your dreams out. But today, that's not the America I see. It's not the America that I believe we have today. Can we bring it back? Absolutely. The question now is whether or not we can bring back that fundamental core of who we are as Americans, where we believe that everyone has a right to justice, everyone has a right to having a voice by voting, everyone has a right to having access to health care, everyone has a right to not being afraid to go to their grocery store, their church, or go to their job, or go to the hospital without being shot. Everyone has the right to know that they are somebody in this society. Can we bring that back? Can we restore those fundamental values? Can we pass that legacy on to our children? So partner with us, partner with Black Push, partner with other organizations that are out here doing these work in these different categories. And if you want to join us on this journey, I encourage you to go to www.blackpush.org today, right now today. Sign up to volunteer, make a donation, do whatever you have to do. Meet us at the rallies, meet us in the streets, because we have work to be done. And we need your voice. We need to work together, put pride to the side, put our parties to the side, put our religions and our different faiths to the side, from the aspect of just coming around the fact that we have to love thy neighbor as thyself, treat other people the way we would want to be treated. Let's restore back to America the dignity we once had, the love we once had, the compassion we once had. And let's get to work to make America better than it has to be, and to prove to the world that still the greatest experiment of our democracy is not behind us, but it's before us, and we are built for the challenge, and we are built to go forward. Join us on this journey. Join us in this fight. Let's do this.